Welcome to People Are Everything, the show where I ask my guests, who are the 5 people that have shaped the person you are today? And today we have JB Adams. And I chose JB ages ago to be the finale of season 5. I loved this conversation. It's warm, it's natural. I mean, they all are, but this one's particularly so. And I think I found myself a little kindred in JB. What does he describe himself as? A sort of a sensitive introvert, but actually he comes across very extrovert. Actually, very sort of confident and accomplished. But you'll hear more about that. And the other thing, well, I'll let him tell you all about it. But he reads Victor Hugo every day, and decided to do that as one of his challenges. So he's somebody that likes to push himself into new and interesting aspects of life. Let's put it that way. So sit back, enjoy my conversation with JB Adams. Hello, JB. Welcome to People Are Everything. First of all, how are you? How are you today?
I'm great, Julia. It is a great pleasure to be with you and to finally, I've been so excited to get this going, and today we have arrived at the day.
Well, we have, and I know we spoke in December, didn't we? And I made you wait on purpose because, well, you're from Florida, and I think anyone who lives in the sunshine just needs to have to wait over the winter months, just to pay some sort of penance for our suffering. What do you think?
It's earned. It's earned. Thank you. I don't mind waiting. It's worth it.
Oh, bless you. I'm only joking. But I know you are in Florida and you are in the sunshine. And I actually went away this last week, in desperate search of it. A desperate search. It's been a really dreary winter here. And I got on a little aeroplane and I went all the way to a place called Lanzarote in the Canaries.
Oh.
Never been, but everyone told me it'll be warm, sunny, freezing. Absolutely the coldest ever, because I didn't pack anything proper. I was freezing to death in shorts and jumpers because that's all there was for me to wear, and it was so cold. JB, I can't tell you.
It's sunny and freezing, I'm assuming.
No, it was raining and windy and cold for half the time, and then the last 3 days. Luckily, I'm like instant tan person, so I just instantly got one. But I only had 3 days of sunshine, so I'm very envious of your climate.
Well, it's an interesting irony that if you were to live in Florida, it would be during the summer that you would want to go north and get out of the heat, because it is a test of endurance to make it through the summer months, which last well into October.
All right. Well, what do they say? What would you rather be? Really, really cold or really, really hot? So, I don't know. At the moment, I would take hot. Thank you very much. And also, for anybody watching on the YouTube thing, you got a great setup there. What is that? That's a huge microphone.
My setup? This is a a Shure microphone.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a soundboard that I use for when I do podcasts, and I have a Logitech Brio camera.
Very professional. I need to up my game, JB. There we are. I'm very jealous of your JB name. We had this conversation before. I was JD for years in my previous lives. Then I seem a distant memory ago now. But when I was in my teens and 20s, everyone called me JD, and I thought I should have kept that going. I really like it.
You still can.
I don't know. Bit old for a rebrand, but no, I think it's cool. I think it's really great. And how did that come to be? Was that always how you were referred to?
Oh goodness, no. I'll try to keep this brief because if you let me go, I could go on and on. My given name is James Robert Adams, and I was named after my mother's 2 uncles, Uncle Jim and Uncle Bob.
Okay.
And before I was born, the story goes that my paternal grandmother said something to my mother while I was still in the womb, and she said, my grandfather's name was John, my father's name was John, my brother's name was John, my son's name is John, but I don't have a grandson named John. And my mother was like, we will not have a junior in this family. But here's how it comes full circle. Um, I was called Jim as a boy. When I got into school, I was in a class, for which the number one name for baby boys was James at the time that I was born. So there was a bunch of other Jims in the class, so no, we had to be differentiated from each other. So they referred to me as Little Jimmy, which I did not like.
Oh, harsh.
And that grew and evolved to the point where I was in college and moved into a fraternity where, again, there was a bunch of men named James. And they said, well, we got to give you a unique name. And so they asked me what my name was. And they said, we're going to call you Jim Bob,
Oh,
which I also didn't care for. And other people didn't care for it. Like, we're not going to call you Jim Bob. We're going to call you JB.
oh, that's good.
The way that comes around is for my grandmother, her father's name was John Burling. So I
Mhm.
said, Grandma, at school, they call me JB. And I'm going to take that as honoring the legacy of Johns in your family.
Yes. Did you buy that?
She did.
I only groaned with the Jim Bob thing, 'cause that would have been I grew up on the Waltons.
Well,
And
exactly.
yeah, so I associate Jim Bob with "Good night, Jim Bob. Good night,
That
Elizabeth."
you have no idea how many years it took, like, because we all slept in a dorm where all the
Yeah.
beds were together, and people would walk through. My bed was right next to the door, and they would say, "Good night, Jim Bob."
Oh, no.
Everyone would laugh.
Oh, no. That's why I groaned when you said it. No, you can't be Jim Bob. That's not okay. Well, whoever came up with JB, well done them. Hope they're on your list today. No, I'm joking. So, well, I, I know we spoke last time, and I remember segments of that conversation, and I remember certain things that we certainly had alignment on. And I think the biggest one that's probably going to come up today is in this idea of trust, because
Hmm.
I think this is something I have majored on, worked upon, thought about. I don't know, tried to incorporate in almost every work situation, life situation, etc. So before we get into who you are, what you're all about, can we have a little chat about that? Because
Sure.
I've been pondering it. So, if I kick it off by saying, I think that you are absolutely right. The most important element of a relationship to have any possibility of deep connection and to being able to thrive is trust. Because if you don't trust that person, nothing good is going to happen. You can just, it's just going to be I don't know, superficial everything if I don't actually trust you. And I know how important this is because I know that everybody's filters are so massively affected by, do I trust you or not, with anything that you say to me. Even if you ask me how I was, if I don't trust you, I'll go, why is he asking me that? He could be trying to trick me. You know what I mean? Is he trying to find out a weakness? Get my point? Is so when I read about you and we had that conversation in December, that's the thing that stuck with me most about you, is this, that you're absolutely rooted in that as an idea. So do you want to sort of respond to that, but then sort of lead into who you are and what you're all about before we sort of get into your five?
Yes, I do recall that conversation vividly. And for those of you who have not yet had a chance to meet Julia Duthie, this is the kind of first impression that she makes. So we were scheduled to meet for about 30 minutes. And I had, you know, no expectations of how it was going to go. I was ready for anything. And we wound up speaking for 90 minutes because we couldn't stop talking to each other. So that really made a huge impression on me about your ability to draw people out. And I would connect that to trust building.
Hmm.
One of the most important aspects in trust building, from my point of view, is the personal relationship.
Yeah.
And you will hear when I talk about my five, some of the people who influenced my approach to that. But just the simple skill of saying hello to people, asking them how they're doing, asking them what's going on at home, what did you do over the weekend, the small talk of life,
Mhm.
um, is the thing. When you do that repeatedly, repeated interactions over time, those open up the doors for people to say, okay, I'm going to let my guard down because this person cares about me as a human being. And I know that that sounds like common sense,
Yeah.
but to my surprise, it's not yet common practice.
Mm. Okay, well, firstly, sorry for overrunning. That is so typical me. Um, but when I'm in that, so it's a compliment to you too. If I feel that I'm with somebody that's aligned with me, and we don't have to agree with each other, but certainly aligned in that sense of realness. Is this person going to be real with me? I find that very seductive, and I just love it. It's one of my favorite things to discover in my day, is that there is somebody there opposite me who is willing to be vulnerable, talk to me about real things that interest me and are important, typically. And I experience what you just talked about most profoundly in the workplace, to be honest, because I think
Yes.
I'm hardwired to be real with my friends and family and my loved ones, which is really annoying for them because sometimes they just want to talk about the day, but I want to know what's behind the day. When you say that, what's behind that? Drive them mad. But in the workplace, I find, I've led a lot of people. I've run a lot of companies in my life, and some people have pointed out you do take a lot of time to get to know people, don't you? And I said, is there any other way? Like, I really can't see a shortcut. Now, obviously, as your business scales, you've got to find different ways of doing it. But um, I don't think there's anything more impactful in terms of getting the best out of your teams and having them feel, that they belong to something and that they have impact than actually knowing them. So, no, I am quite keen on the old trust thing because I think it's really important to be able to create an environment where people do want to share who they are with you.
Yes, I have a reaction to that. When I was listening to the previous podcasts, there was a moment when you said that you would go to a dinner party and you would have to engage in small talk with others, and that you found that I don't know what word you used, but the essence of it was you found it cumbersome and
Yeah.
annoying because you wanted to get to the deep stuff. And when I heard you say that, it made me smile because I looked back on the call that we did back in December and I thought, Julia, are you saying that that 90 minutes that you spent with me wasn't small talk? Because you and I are wired the same way. Let's go for the deep stuff. Let's not wait.
But if you are hardwired that way, then this is small talk for you and me because
Yeah.
this is how we communicate. This is what we do. But I can't tell you the amount of times I've been in social situations, and I wouldn't say there's an allergic reaction to sometimes my way of talking, but certainly I've met a handful of people who really don't like it. They really don't. They want to keep it very light and fluffy, talk about the game, talk about the day, talk about, the movie they've just seen and things like that. Um, and there's another technique I've noticed from people if they really don't want you to know them. I don't know if you know people like this who just ask 15 questions in a row, none of which they really want the answer for, and none of which you give you room to be, any kind of deep, introspection. It's more like, so where do you live? What do you do? Do you have a dog? Do you live here? Oh, sorry, I've done that bit. Where, yeah, etc. They're just like really what I call surface level questions. And that why I call that controlling the salience. They've decided that the best thing to do in that hour, if they're stuck with me, is to keep me at bay with lots of really superficial questions.
Put you to
So
work on
put me
that.
to work, but not make it at all revealing of anything. So I'm a bit sort of alert to that sometimes. And then you've got the opposite, and we had this just this week actually, where uh, I'm at a bar, as you can imagine, on holiday, having a little cocktail, staying out in the wind and rain. And I just chat to the people next to me. And I realized for fun, okay, this sounds a bit mean actually, JB. For fun, I recounted everything I knew about that couple to my partner afterwards. And I must have been about 15, 20 facts that I knew, but not superficial things, actual things about their lives, where they grew up,
Yeah.
their families, their daughter, what she was studying, etc. And then I said to my partner, what if we asked them what they knew about us at the end? And we both laughed and we said, they didn't ask us a single question. Not
Right.
one,
Oh,
not one. And I'm sort of allergic to both sides of those things. If someone batters me with questions that aren't particularly interesting, from a connection point of view, or if somebody doesn't ask me a single question, they're my, you know, things to avoid. But generally speaking, anything in between, I'm quite happy with.
Well, this happened to me recently, similar to what you just mentioned. I was in a business call. I had been approached by somebody who I did not know, but they were sort of in my network. And they set up a meeting with me, and I knew that they had a business agenda, but I did not know them.
Mm.
So at the beginning of the call, I always start by saying, "Tell me how you're doing today." Of course, we exchanged pleasantries. And then I could tell that she wanted to get down to business. But I interrupted and I said, "Will you indulge me for a moment?" And she said, "Oh, okay." And I said, I really want to get to know you better. Do you mind if I ask you, just tell me where you're from?" And she had an expression on her face because this was a virtual call. And I could see she was annoyed. This disrupting her agenda. This is not what she came here to do. But she answered my question, told me where she was from. And from there, I asked follow-up questions. Tell me more about, this environment. And we discovered that we had some places that we had been to that we had in common. And we shared memories from those places. And as we were talking, I looked at the clock. And at 14 minutes into that conversation, she revealed something deeply personal about a member of her family. And
Mm.
I thought it took 14 minutes for us to get from "tell me where you're from" to opening up and being vulnerable with each other. And my takeaway from that was not just that we exchanged uh, ideas and information that led to commonalities, but the rest of the conversation that dealt with her agenda was so much more pleasant,
Mm.
easy. I cared about her as a person, so therefore I wanted to help her achieve this business agenda. And if we hadn't had that conversation, I would have, I might have said, I can't help you. You need to find someone else. Or just taking the time to express care to another human being, whether you know them or not, is very important to me.
Well, let's sort of build on that then, because that comes back to the trust theme. Because if
Yeah.
she must have felt within minutes of meeting you that here's someone I can trust with all my thoughts on whatever she shared. Um, so let's talk about you in professionally,
Yes.
who you are professionally. We have established what your one of your core philosophies is, but let's do that piece and then we can build on that from here.
Would you like me to just jump in and do it?
Yeah, just tell me who you are and what you're about, because I think the listeners would. I mean, I could do my version of it, but I'm going to mess it up.
Okay.
So yeah, if you could just jump in.
I'll do my version of it and I'll mess it up first. Then you take turns. Um, I am an executive development strategist and coach, and I help growing companies scale up to the next level by transforming their strong managers into trusted executives.
Mm.
And what that really means is, uh, at a fundamental level, throughout my entire career, I didn't pop out of the box as an executive development strategist and coach. It took a while to arrive at this destination. But through my younger years, through my college years, through my early career years, one thing has always held true, and that is I am endlessly curious.
Hmm.
Very curious about people, about how they become who they are. How did I become who I am? What contributed to my development? And in discovering that for myself, trying to create learning experiences for others to help them along the same path. So each one of us has our own path. I can't tell you what to do,
Hmm.
but I can pose the right questions, help you strategize, come up with a plan to achieve your goals, raise your awareness of your patterns of decision making and communication so that you can be more effective and influential and achieve, which a theme which will come back time and again in this podcast, voluntary followership from the people around you.
Oh, I like that. Voluntary followership. I used to call that, well, they just want to do it.
Right.
Yeah. Um, you missed a bit. So
Yes.
I mean, we can't let it go that you worked at Disney for all those years. I mean, it was
Oh,
what,
that's
11 years or something?
11 years. And then after I left, I continued working as a contractor. That is going to come up in my five.
Okay, fine. As long as we don't skip over that. Because to people who, obviously, I imagine it, the inside Disney world is very different to the outside Disney world. because obviously we're as the punters, as we say in the UK, it's all just magical. Um,
And yes, it's the happiest place on earth.
yeah, and I imagine working inside, you probably experience the blood, sweat, and tears that make that happen, which is a bit like the whole Wizard of Oz thing, isn't it? We don't really want to see all that. So I imagine working at Disney is very different to visiting Disney by a long, long stretch.
It is, but I will say that those were some of the happiest blood, sweat, and tears that I ever shed.
Yeah, and I wasn't digging for oh, I bet it's awful. What I meant was it looks so effortless on the outside, but I know it must be graft because you don't get to that high standard of customer service. I've been to Disney. I was absolutely blown away by it. I only went recently with my daughter, and everywhere I went, look at the high standards of everything.
Mm.
Everything from the service to the experiences to everything, the rides, the accommodation, the meticulousness of it. And to make it look so effortless, it's like it must be. It looks so regimented in a good way, as in so much attention to detail. It's very, very impressive.
And that is very prevalent in the culture. We always used to say the two things we focused on with regard to our guests were exceeding expectations and attention to detail.
Yeah. Well, tick on both. Tick VG. Um, well, I'm sure those years influenced your approach. I'm sure it's given you a lot of door openings, because I think when you have that on your resume, it's a pretty cool thing to say I've done all these great roles at Disney.
Yes.
But let's get into and there's no coincidence. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of people drawn to this podcast of mine, and likewise, I'm drawn to them. People who are in the people business, the people development business, because I think there is something hardwired in people, and I'm going to put myself in this category a bit. That curiosity thing about really understanding the human condition, like really understanding it. And if we're only here once, which I think we are, how we can squeeze every little piece of it out of the experience of knowing who we are and how we engage with everything around us. I find it absolutely, if anything, if I worry about anything in life, it's time more than anything else.
Mm.
There's just not enough of it for all the things I want to learn, experience, and kind of share. So I am seeing a kind of a bit of a run on people whose expertise is in this area, but I think it lends very nicely to the theme of this podcast anyway. So should we start the podcast?
Yes,
So why not? Why not? I know I could talk for hours with you, as you know.
as we both,
Um,
yes.
well, the first question I always ask people is, how did you find choosing your 5? Because I find this quite revealing as a starting point. So how did you find it?
I found it challenging.
Hmm.
And actually, this is my opportunity to tell you that I may have broken the rules.
Oh, everyone does now. I let it go. I've given up. I was so strict at first, and I was like, oh, it doesn't matter.
Well, I met the rules, but I'm going to slightly break them a bit. So
Right.
when you posed the exercise, and I made a point of I'm going to make my decisions before I start studying the previous podcast because I just want to go in raw without a bias and just say, this is where I would start. And then maybe I'll learn some new things as I go. So I had my 5 in pretty short order within a few days.
Okay.
But then as I was doing that, I had a realization. It's really hard to narrow it down
Mm.
to the 5 because if you asked me, like, just off the top of my head, who are the 5 most important people, I would immediately answer, I have 2 parents and 3 siblings, and these 5 people, my family of origin,
Yeah.
are the 5 most important people who have influenced me.
Hmm.
But then I also asked, do these 5 people want me talking about them for an hour and a half on a podcast? And the answer is probably not. A little bit, yes. A lot, probably not. So I stuck to the rule and I came up with a list of 5 individuals that I can mention by name.
Mhm.
And this is my chance to say, if you will indulge me, a little honorable mention to the family and friends who have influenced me.
I'm gonna bring in a new segment called honorable mentions. Because this keeps coming up, and I'm thinking, "Well, I just incorporate it. It's my podcast. I can do what I want."
Yes.
So, yes, of course, let's do some honorable mentions. You want to do them now or as we go?
We can do them now,
Alright.
because this is sort of filling in more of the gaps of what's my background.
Okay, cool.
And I'll try to keep it tight because in order for you to understand where I'm coming from, I'll start with the fact that I was born and raised on a family farm
Mhm.
in rural Illinois. I miss that place. I go back to visit from time to time, and I always love it there. When you grow up on a farm, you have an appreciation for life and death. You have an appreciation for the change in the seasons,
Mm.
and you have an
Mm.
appreciation for hard work and taking care of your neighbors and all the things that I would consider Midwestern values. And so, just to give honor to my parents, by the way, next month they will be celebrating their 70th wedding anniversary.
Wow,
Yes.
that's something.
And I will be going back to visit with them for that. Um, when I think about the childhood that they provided to me, the one word that comes to mind is stability.
Mhm.
There was no drama in this household. There was no substance abuse. There was no marital infidelity.
Mhm.
And I have a specific memory from when I was age 4. I have 3 baby boomer siblings, and I'm Generation X because there's a little gap in the flow. But I can remember looking out the window, watching my siblings walk down the lane and meet the school bus. And I would be thinking, well, my first thought would be, haha, they're gone. I have this whole place to myself. And then my second thought would be, I have this whole place to myself, and I'm here with the 2 people who kind of shower me with attention, and those were my
Mm.
parents. And I can recall in those moments where it was just the 3 of us, that they would stand and embrace each other in the kitchen, and they would smooch on each other.
Hmm.
And as a child, think of what that means to a child to look up and see your parents expressing affection to each other,
Yeah.
and it gives you a wonderful sense of safety and security that
Mhm.
I think lasts a lifetime.
That sounds so idyllic. I I was h there was one thing in your listing there that I was waiting for you to say,
Yes.
which is, the life and death of seasons, hard work, but also that that you're not actually in control of anything. I
Oh,
imagine there would have been an element of that growing up and an
forces
acceptance
of
of that
nature. Yes.
because you could plan and crop and seed and mow and all the stuff you need to do. Then nature just goes, nah, not this year.
Right.
And I imagine therefore a big lifelong lesson is that just have to accept it and just roll with it because you're not in control. And
Yes.
because I feel that if if I was had the pleasure of being in farming, that would be something I think would be very much a feature of it. Is that fair to say or?
Oh, very much. And farming is a stressful occupation
Mm,
because of that unpredictability. Now, there's plenty of new innovations that have occurred since I moved off the farm. They do an amazing job of incorporating technology into the planting and harvesting seasons. I kind of marvel at that. We certainly didn't have that when I was growing up.
mm,
And they have crop insurance and they have all kinds of ways to sort of minimize your risk, but at the same time, those are potentially minimizing your profits.
mm.
It's very challenging.
Yeah, it's like a microcosm of it all, isn't it? Resilience,
Mhm.
acceptance, hard work. But amongst all of that, this lovely, tender relationship with your parents that, you sat wide-eyed and go, "Ah,
Oh,
that looks nice."
yes,
And I imagine, therefore, impacted you on your relationships and what you look for, because I think that's where the coding comes from, doesn't it? What you see is what you seek.
very
So
much.
I
Yes.
imagine that's a feature. All right. Well, that sounds fantastic. Very good honorable mentions. We're going to do the 3 siblings as well.
Uh, yes, well, they're all loved and admired. We get along great, which is important for us to do. Every Christmas, we have sibling bonding night.
Okay.
which means it's just us, and we go do something at a restaurant. We go out to a movie and indulge in the fact that there's no parents and no kids invited to that. It's the four of us and the in-laws, um, being a generation. And, you know, I hate to put it in this way, but this is the truth behind it, preparing for our old age.
In those conversations, you're preparing for your old age, or
It,
just the fact that you are knowing that your parents will go at some point and you are the
yes,
family.
all of that. It's important
Mm.
to me and to my siblings that we have good relationships as we enter into the next chapter, because you can't predict who's going to need help.
Yeah.
And how can we help them, and how can we, achieve this together?
I totally agree. And I think, I know midlife can be challenging. That's why we all have our little crises, as everybody says. But I think it's also, I think one of the reasons we do is there is that pending knowledge that the second half is going to be parentless.
Hmm.
And I watch a lot. I didn't know my mum at all, and my dad was. I have a sort of this fairly estranged relationship with him. But it still hit me like a truck when he died
Hmm.
because I was now the vanguard. There was no one
Yes.
behind ahead of me. So that kind of seismic shift in order is huge. And I think that is when you do need your siblings more than ever. And it's quite common for it all to get busted up for a bit. So I
Yes.
remember it being quite difficult amongst my siblings and I when it happened. But there is that realization that, oh, you are my family now. That's it. We're the top of the tree. And we're actually there to look after the generations behind us and each other. So I think that's to actually have the foresight to do that with intention.
Yeah.
I think that's really impressive that you've actually sat as a foursome and thought that out.
It came together very easily, I think.
Mm.
Um, because as I said, they were raised in the same household that had stability, and I don't know. I feel particularly as we age, we do look out for each other,
Yeah.
because I think of it this way: these are the only three other people on this planet who understand what it was like to grow up in this household.
Yeah.
We have our own little quirks and anomalies, and we get each other.
But they're the only siblings are the only people that know all of you for all
Yeah.
your life.
Mm-hmm.
Friends you meet later, parents can only be half the time here. And so siblings are the ones that know your whole story. Um, and also you can't BS each other, can you? Because it's like,
No.
I was there. I know
Well,
what kid you were.
I'm the youngest, so they certainly have known every day of my life, and I
Yeah.
affectionately refer to them as the babysitting squad.
Unpaid as well, I'm sure.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, and you're all boys? Did I catch that?
I have one brother and I have two sisters,
Oh, for some reason I
and
thought I
and
heard all
I'm
boys.
and I'm the youngest.
Uh, the most spoiled, I'm sure.
Yes, the most spoiled, and the one who could figure out how to get attention.
All right. Good life skill.
Mhm.
Well, I'm glad they got the core squad has got an honourable mention.
Yes.
So should we consider that achieved, and then should we move on to the five?
One brief honorable mention. I have many friends. This is like an acceptance speech, Julia.
Well, the Oscars were on recently, weren't they?
Yes, they
We could
were.
do that.
Thank you for this award. There's too many people to mention, so I will make a rule. I'm not mentioning any of them by name, but I
Okay.
want to mention this because I know it's important to you. The dearest friends that I have on planet Earth, which are now all around the world, um, succeeded in providing me with a sense of belonging that I
Mm.
cherish.
Yeah. Good message.
Hmm.
We underestimate the power of that, don't we? This belonging thing. I did a whole piece on belonging
Yes.
for a Substack, like a whole series on it, because at the time everyone was talking about fitting in, and I'm like, no, that's not it. Fitting in's rubbish. Fitting in is like pretending and being hyper alert to everything around you and hoping for the best. Belonging is when you just are at your most comfortable and relaxed because everyone just loves you anyway.
Yes.
So I think if you've made a squad of friends that give you that. That's priceless. That's the stuff. So good. Well, you're very loved, aren't you, JB?
I
Um,
feel it right now, yes.
And if you were ever to win an Oscar, you've got a bit of practice in. Um, all right. Now should we do it?
Yes.
Okay, let's go. So, who made it to the number one spot? Although people do like to say there's no particular order, but in your case, is there?
There's an order.
All right.
And I'll add one more thing about the process. Um, it's remarkable in helping you understand who you are, and so my title for this entire experience is, "This is the story of the sensitive introvert and how the sensitive introvert made his way in the world."
Mm. I've got a book coming on.
And with that, my first selection is Victor Hugo, the
Hmm.
playwright.
Okay, let's go.
Uh, in the year 2013, was getting toward the end of the year. It was December of 2013, and I was kind of looking around, digging around, thinking, I want to do something in 2014. I want to do something special. It needs to provide learning. It needs to be challenging and take me out of my comfort zone. It needs to have a daily discipline. And that's the kind of challenge I like, is what can I commit to doing every single day? And it needs to be shared with others. So those are my criteria in selecting something. I didn't know what yet. And I had been listening to movie soundtracks, and what would come up in my feed was like movie soundtracks that are more than 2 hours long. And so it started just playing Les Misérables. And I knew nothing about Victor Hugo and Les Misérables. And I was listening to it and I thought, this is confusing. These songs don't make any sense on the surface. And I started digging into that, and I discovered that Les Misérables had 365 chapters.
I did not know that. Carry on.
And it was in that moment that I thought, aha, 365 chapters. I can read a chapter a day, and I will go on social media and I will post a summary of the chapter and my interpretation.
Wow, great idea.
And so I announced that, like, today was January 1st. This is what I'm doing for the rest of the year. I'm calling it my year with Victor. And granted, I then made a very concerted effort that I wasn't going to go watch the movie and find out how it ended. I was very focused on, like, it's just going to unfold over time and you're going to get my real reaction to every single chapter. Much in the same way that when people put reaction videos on YouTube,
Hmm.
imagine doing this, like I'm doing this every day for a year, which is kind of how it turned out. And I got a little followership from people who would say, if I was late, they would say, "Where's today's post? What happened?"
Uh,
It was like a little soap opera for them, like, tell us what happened next. And I will tell you also that by early February, I was thinking, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? Because the first chapters are pretty easy, but the deeper you go, Victor Hugo is taking you on a journey, and it's vast and
mm-hmm.
it's long, and there are numerous characters. And he is really painting a picture of the human condition. And over the course of that year, it transformed the way that I looked at humanity and my
Mm.
place in the human story.
So when you were doing these daily musings, let's call it that, where you're reading a chapter and you're obviously reflecting on it, you're playing it back to the world. Did you start off going, well, I'm going to like reveal anything of myself in this? Did you do that? Did you reveal anything of yourself in these kind of posts that you were doing?
Yes, I would share my reactions and opinions to what I was, reading. I would share my reactions and opinions on the characters' behaviors, and tie it to something in the present. I mean, there was a whole series of uh I always think of it in terms of time, like 365 days. I can tell you that we spent 3 weeks on the Battle of Waterloo.
Mm-hmm.
We spent 2 weeks in the convent. We spent a week in the sewers of Paris. And so you I'm so sorry, Julia, this happens from time to time.
But when you said that, when you just lined those things up, it reminds me that great art, great writers, um, they transform you, don't they? They literally not they transform you, and they um transport you into worlds that, I always say, like, reading books is like living multiple lives, uh, or I don't know, experiencing really fabulous dreams. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Well, speaking again as the sensitive introvert, these characters start to become real.
Yeah.
And you start getting invested in their lives, and you really do wonder what's going to happen to them next, and do they have agency or not? Are the forces of nature working for them or against them? And you start to care about them. That is typical for a sensitive introvert to do. But I would also point this out, which I think is so it's his genius, really. He could have written a book about the history of French government and politics. Um, he had every right to do that. He was a master of, and this is what comes out in the book. He was a master of history,
Mhm.
religion, science, art, literature, music. He understood all of that, and he understood it over the course of time. He would go back and he would talk about the ancients, and he would talk about what was going on leading up to the French Revolution. He would talk about what was going on in his present. And he kind of broke the rules of literature in that he just didn't give a single narrative. He had multiple narratives, and he would interrupt with his own opinions and
Mm.
digressions. And this is what made the difference for me. There are abridged versions of Les Misérables. I had people telling me like, "Oh, just go watch the movie. You'll have it done in 2.5 hours." And I didn't want that. I wanted to get inside the head of Victor Hugo, understand what was going on in his world at his time, and see if
Mm.
those lessons could be applied to where we are at right now. Which actually, see, this happens, Julia. Give it a 5 or 10 minutes, it'll come back. There was a week that we spent studying the street urchins, Gavroche.
Mhm.
And it was during that time that I started looking into, well, where can I find street urchins in the present? And I found a bunch of articles and photos of young people in India and in other countries that had no parents and lived on this.
Mm.
And I was like,
Mhm.
it's happening in the 19th century. It's happening still today.
Mm. Yeah, again, if you've got great writing
Hmm.
that can slide up and down the timeline,
Hmm.
and everything repeats itself, doesn't it? I think when you read historical-based fiction, or even nonfiction, it's surprising and unsurprising that we just have the same themes and the same experiences over and over and over again. For all our technological advancements, for all our um, you know, supposed enlightenment, we still don't learn, as we're seeing in many ways at the moment. Um, I want to go into this sensitive introvert thing because actually it's almost like exposure therapy. If you're going to commit yourself to writing every day, and people are even chasing you for it,
Yes.
that's quite an extroverted thing to sign up for. So was it an exposure therapy? Did you go, right, I've got to get out of this introversion of mine. I'm going to force myself to have a public, production every day.
Uh, I really think of introversion as something. First of all, you have to acknowledge that it's you.
Mhm.
You have to own it, and once you own it, then you're like, "All right, now these things all sort of fall into place. They make sense. Why do I run out of energy at a party? Why?" My friends would make fun of me. I'm like, "Oh, what time is JB leaving the party?" Yeah, because JB gets tired
Yeah.
when it gets crowded and noisy.
Yeah, yeah.
And in a leadership role, what I determined was relationships are at the core of leadership. And so you have to be able to figure out, how am I going to make this work? And as an introvert, it all comes down to managing your energy
Hmm.
and knowing. I have had people say to me, like, "You're an introvert." No, you're not. And
Mhm.
it's because I know how to flip the switch and turn it on. I'm like, I'm extroverted right now. Later, I'm going to be asleep in my bed. But right
Mhm.
now, I am fully present with you. I'm engaged with you. We're engaging in reciprocating conversation to get to know each other. And I want to make sure that I leave you feeling good.
Mhm. I can relate. I can totally relate. I know that feeling of that's enough now. And it's like the extrovert introvert. Well, my expression of it anyway, how I present is I can come across as extremely extrovert. You know, I'm a very confident person generally. I mean, I can walk into a room, feel very at peace and at ease, and you know, I'm the one that will put their hand up or get involved. I'm always involved. You know, I'm never someone to sort of sit back. But my close friends are two in number,
Hmm.
two, and they're my absolute treasures, and I can't imagine life without them. And I trust them with everything. But it's two. It's not 20. It's not 30. It's two. Um, you know, I've only ever had two serious relationships in my life.
Hmm.
The first one was 33 years. And the second one, well, I promised my son I'm living to 103, so I'm hoping for a good 50. So, and that's enough for me. I don't need any more than that. I need those people. So it's like, and I do understand that thing of energy. There are supremely extroverted people who seem to never run out of it. And I look at them and I think, how are you still going? And mostly, how are you still going working this room with really little return for you? Like it feels like all out giving, but
Oh,
just doing it is the energy creation for them. They love it. They thrive off it. I
yes.
am most definitely the one you'll find in the corner at the end of a party, going having a deep one-to-one
Oh,
while they're still working the room. You know, are you that person too?
well, it's funny that you mentioned that because that's part of my honorable mention.
Okay.
I think I come from a family of introverts, but I would qualify us as social introverts. And what that means to me is we know the social graces. We are, one of the families that's likely to have a party and invite a lot of people. And what I learned from observing my parents and their interactions is greet every single person. Let them
Mm.
know that they are welcome. Show them where the food and the drinks are. And then don't just leave them. So when you say somebody who's on the edge of a party, as a sensitive introvert, I will find the people like who's on the edge, who doesn't have anyone to talk to. And you can do one of two things. You can say, "Hey, come over here, join us. We're playing a game or we're engaged in this conversation. You know, you're one of us, join us." Or alternatively, if I know that that person is also introverted, I'll just go sit with them in the corner, have
Mm.
a one-on-one, and they will know that they got some attention and we care about them because they're included. And to me, that's an introverted way of saying we can still be social, and include people and give that sense of belonging, but we don't have to be the center of attention for the whole group.
Yeah. And I conflated that in the early days, by the way. I was definitely the center of attention when I was younger. Like I forced it.
Ah,
Like if there was a room full of people, I was doing the singing, I was doing the joke telling, the storytelling. I held court better than anyone. But actually, I look back now and I'm thinking, oh, wasn't I clever at keeping everybody away from me?
ah,
Wasn't that a clever little trick? Because actually, I wouldn't have known it back then, but looking back, I knew that's exactly what I was doing. And now I'm older and wiser and a bit more confident in myself. I'm just like, I want to go the opposite. I want to get into stuff as quickly as I can, and it is not loud. It's not you know uh, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not performative. It's real. I really do want to sit
yeah,
and know someone. You
your
know?
genuine self.
Yeah.
I find it fascinating that you found a device to, disguise your
Mm.
introversion, and I would, offer this comparison. For me, and I discovered this in college, the camera. "Oh, would you like to pose for a photo? I'll take your picture."
Yeah. Oh, you took the pictures.
I'm taking the pictures, and what people didn't understand was I was hiding behind that camera, but it allowed me to move among them
Yeah.
and, do my social bit, but I'm like, "Oh, sorry, I need to go take some pictures over here."
Oh, yeah. Well, and somewhere that worked.
Yeah.
And you kinda just kept it going probably longer than you needed to. I know I did. I was doing that I was the extrovert for a long time, but I knew all along it was, not sustainable. But, oh, that's really interesting. So did you do it professionally or were you
Oh, no.
it was just a ruse?
just casually. I mean, I got my first camera when I was in college, and I was the fraternity historian. And
Mhm.
and I really do consider myself a storyteller. So when I was taking the photos, I'm like, this is gonna go in an album, and I'm gonna tell a story about it, and people are gonna like it and remember and laugh. And I was trying to capture genuine feelings among those memories.
Mm.
Um, but when you talk about the evolution, I own my introversion now. I'm not trying to hide it. And that actually makes it much easier to stand up in front of a room and say, I come to you today, a proud introvert,
Mhm.
and I can explain to you what that means. And that doesn't um, prevent me from engaging with you in an extroverted way, even though it might feel like it's an act or feel like I'm faking it. No, I genuinely do want to be here and I care about you. I just have to manage my energy in order to do it. You learn how to do it. You
Yeah.
learn through practice.
Hmm. Interesting. Well, good old Victor Hugo. No, I bet he didn't realize when he was writing all of that it would have such an impact on you. Did you finish the 365 days?
I did, and
Hurrah.
spent. Uh, Actually, it was right up until New Year's. I spent Christmas of 2014 in Paris, and I went to the Pantheon and had my photo taken at Victor Hugo's grave. And then I returned, and on New Year's Eve, I was with my brother in New York City, and we went to see Les Mis on Broadway.
Oh, perfect. Oh, that's perfect.
Mhm.
Well done. Well done on two levels. A body of work, committing to an idea, genuinely absorbing yourself in it. And that feels very, I don't know, there's a kismet about it that you finished it there with your brother. So I love that. Well done. All right. Well, he's going to be a tough act to follow then. Who's number two?
This is a living person.
Okay.
Her name is Valerie Oberle, and
Mhm.
she was the first female executive at Disney Corporate,
Okay.
and she was the vice president of Disney University and Disney Institute when I worked there. I want to give you a little bit of context, which again goes back into my background. I, as I said, had a very stable upbringing, but do have to admit to you that by the time I got into college, I struggled
Hmm.
to figure out what am I on this planet to do? Where do I belong? All of those questions, and I had a whole series of what I would consider trial and error. But it was when I got invited to a meeting in the mid 1990s, and they said, "We hear that you have a background in education and that you worked with kids and that you have a degree in agriculture." And I said, "Yes, all of that's true." And they said, "Well, come to this meeting. We need someone to design science programs for kids." So I was there and I got the job. I didn't know it was an interview, it was just a meeting. They said, if you want this job, we're offering it to you. You came and you had great ideas, and we got to get this project going. So that was my entry into Disney University, and it transformed the way that I saw the company. Now, prior to this, I loved the people that I worked with at Epcot. They were wonderful people, but I knew that I didn't fit in there. That was not my place. So I got invited to take this job, and I fell in love. I fell in love with designing learning experiences for others. I
Mhm.
moved from youth programs into the professional development programs and got to do even more than I ever could have imagined. And Valerie Oberle was our leader at that time. And it wasn't just the relationship that I had with her, it was how she exemplified Disney culture.
Hmm.
Um, One of the things that I think characterizes a high trust work environment is if I were to describe to you, we moved to an office environment that was off property. We called it Westwood. It was Westwood Center. And Valerie Oberle specifically said, I want the cubicles set up in this way. These will be rows of cubicles. And in the center of the floor that we're on, we will have an open space. And she went and purchased plastic patio furniture. This is inside the building, but it had umbrellas and patio chairs. And she's like, this is the patio. This is where people can gather. They can eat their lunch. They could have informal meetings. And so she really wanted to create this creative, collaborative environment. And I will add, because we were so into measurement, I can tell you that she succeeded in that we had very high cast member engagement. That's our employee engagement. We had very high guest satisfaction scores. We had people coming back time and again, telling their friends, great referrals and recommendations. And we were making money. We had growing revenues and a healthy profit margin. So to me, that's putting it all together and making it work. But getting back to what I think characterizes the high trust environment, if you were to walk into this office, one of the things that I noticed right away that made it different from any place I had ever worked was the sound of laughter.
Mhm.
You would walk in there, like new people would come in, they'd be like a little overwhelmed, like it was noisy because we had people debating ideas, challenging each other, being very engaged. And because we knew each other so very well, we knew how to make each other laugh. And it was
Yeah.
important to have fun at work.
Oh
Um,
gosh. Hallelujah.
I loved it there.
Yeah. I think okay, so many things. So first of all, this idea of like communal space for just sort of hangouts and stuff. That what year would this have been? Because that's all the rage now and your sort of
Oh,
Googles and
it
whatnot.
is. This was
But
1995.
yeah, so well before. Um, and I have always been very lucky. I've always worked in environments where and maybe I brought some of that luck, but I always had the pleasure of working with my friends. You know, people I've really enjoyed. You know, it right up to the present day. I have a little gang now in the work I do, my day job, and we enjoy each other. You know, we have fun, and I can't imagine not going to work with people I can't enjoy my time with. But we do all know that there are corporations out there and businesses out there who can't embody this. They're stuck in some kind of I don't know what it is, whether there's a fear base of, you know, if you let your guard down and you start having these personal relationships, something bad will happen. But you definitely, you know, they do exist. I'm not naive to that. But for me personally, it's anathema. I couldn't work in a place like that. I couldn't work in where I couldn't enjoy my colleagues. Just wouldn't work for me.
I completely agree, and it wouldn't work for me either. When I was doing my research into trust building, I was quite taken with the number of people who, if we were talking about a leader who was distrusted, toward the end of the interview, after collecting what were the events that contributed to your distrust, then I would ask them, "How long did you report to this leader?" And what I expected them to say was, "Oh, 18 months or, a year." Some of them would say, "I reported to this leader for 5 years." And I'd be thinking, "What? How can you endure being in an environment of distrust for that long?" I certainly couldn't.
Well, to me, it's like kryptonite. If you have to sit in a room, you know how this feels. If you're in a room and you even get the sense that somebody in there is not wanting you to win,
Hmm.
you know that person, right? But from my point of view, it is kryptonite for me. It destroys my game. My whole game goes off because I'm sort of. I mean, anyone watching this now rather than listening, I would be like talking to you and then like half looking down the table, going, "How are they reacting to me? What are
Hmm.
they? What's their body language? What's their energy?" And I find it hugely distracting. It puts me completely off balance. I then second guess everything I'm saying,
Yeah.
and then that person, and I've experienced this in my career, becomes huge in my mind.
Mm.
Not the hundreds of people that I feel extremely comfortable with. The one person that's created this kind of, uh, untrusting energy between us becomes the biggest person in my head.
Yes.
And I walk in the door, already wondering what's going to happen today with that person. And it's so difficult. So yeah, I can relate to people who say, well, yeah, I'll it kind of gets normalized a bit, but now, no, I don't think I'd tolerate it now in my older age. I just wouldn't.
Well, I have this conversation with students all the time because I work with business students. And I will tell them when you are in a work environment that's high trust and you feel like you're delivering your very best quality of work and you love going there, people will notice
Yeah.
because you're happy and they want to be around you. And that energy sort of gets shared among all of the people. By the same token, if you are in a low trust environment and you're just there for the paycheck, then I would be the first one to encourage you to start punching up your resume and get out of there, because if
Yeah.
you stay in that low trust environment, it's going to wear you down. And then your reputation will get associated with, well, that's the guy who's just here to get the paycheck.
Yeah, yeah. And also the energy, nobody wants to be around that person, right?
Yes.
But it's like, yeah, it's I think nowadays people are much more likely to move. I think,
Yes.
if you're in a if you go back 20, 30 years, it was like you get a job, you keep a job.
Mhm.
And tenure really mattered and people were really interested in, yeah, how many years were you at this role? But I think the younger generation, I'm hoping they're much quicker to pick up on this and will make the change. They'll just go, I'm not doing this anymore. Sorry about my throat, everybody. you know, I love going on holiday, but I always bring back more than I went with, if you know what I mean. I always bring back something from the aeroplane. Oh, of
Well, while you're doing that, may I share one more Valerie anecdote?
course.
This is a moment that is seared into my memory. I had met her once at a gathering, and she made a very positive impression on me at my first meeting. And then, she was an executive, so she was busy. I didn't really cross paths with her for some time. And then I was invited to the new cast member breakfast, which she did every 6 months. And there were maybe 8 new cast members around this table working at Disney University. And what I expected, which is what you would see in any business environment, is the leader would walk in and say, "Oh, welcome to all of you. You're the new cast members. We're glad you're here. I'd like everyone to introduce themselves." And I mention that because in a business environment, everyone gets used to, like, it's time for me to introduce myself. They all know how to do it. It's like it's a ritual. At the same time, there are some people who get anxiety about introducing themselves because they're thinking, "Oh my gosh, I'm next, and do I have what I'm gonna say worked out?" And that's kind of me in this environment. To my surprise, Valerie Oberle went around the table and she introduced each person by sharing their name, where they were from, where they went to school, what they had studied, where they had worked before this job, and what they were here to do today, which is at length, a couple of minutes for each
Mhm.
person. And she got to me and she got all the details right. And I thought, I have only met this woman one time before this, and she didn't ask me about any of the things that she's talking about. And I just marveled at how
Oh,
she did that and how in that moment I was thinking, I will follow this woman
yeah.
wherever she wants to lead.
Well, because nothing says more um, you are seen and valued than that, does it?
Yes.
And also, I'm going to recognize this is hard for you, so I'm also incredibly alive to 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 the awkwardness and the difficulty here. No, she sounds extremely impressive. I'm going to look her up, Valerie Oberle.
Yes.
Um, Gosh, all right. Well, she deserves the second spot. I'm just asked one quick question. Sorry for my ignorance, but is excuse me, is Disney University an actual university, or is it just for learning how to be in Disney?
Disney University is the internal training department at multiple Disney locations. It's in Burbank, it's in Orlando, it's in Anaheim. It's I believe it's also like wherever there's a theme park, they have a Disney University.
All right, good.
Hmm.
Sorry for the ignorant question of the inner workings of Disney.
That's quite a
Um, all right, listen. Should we go on to number 3?
yes. My number 3 is Dr. Rick Bommelje. He he's now an emeritus, a professor at Rollins College in Winter Park, Florida. And I was able to join in the year 2007. I joined his Leadership Mastermind Alliance, which was a small group of usually eight to 10 people who would meet with him once a month. And what we did in those half day sessions was talk about our goals and aspirations, but to do it in the context of leadership and listening.
Mm-hmm.
So he is the listening leader, and he's written several books. And what I found remarkable about him was we didn't talk about listening, we practiced it. And when you practice it repeatedly over the course of, it was about 10 years that I was in this alliance, um, you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about the people around you. And I understand why listening is so important to him.
Mhm.
I also learned how important listening is just in general for being a good human being.
Hmm. Right. Well, first of all, what's his surname again? Rick
Rick Bommelje, it's spelled Bommelje.
Bommelje. Got a great name. um. Okay, let's get into the listening thing then.
Yes.
I used to have a problem with this, with the whole "what's a good listener?" Because as you can tell, I'm also a good talker. But as I hope people understand, is that I'm talking to invite and I'm listening very actively. Like I really listen to the people that I'm talking to. I really want to, learn something from them, and I like response. I like the whole call and response of conversation. But I used to worry that I wasn't a good listener because I talked as much as my companion, guest, colleague, whoever was in front of me. But I've kind of got some peace with it now. I understand that listening isn't just about sitting there quietly. You have to engage with people. You have to respond to what people are saying in front of you. So just being polite and quiet. I know people who would sit quietly and listen, but won't remember a single thing of what was said at that dinner table.
Can
And so I feel like listening isn't just about being quiet, is it?
I can tell you what I have learned. Not only through my time with Rick, and I had the pleasure of sitting alongside of him when he was finishing his book, Listening Pays. He invited me to help him finish it. And so that was an honor for me to meet with him in
Mm.
the course of months and really dig into the content of his message. But this is my takeaway from that experience with him that was reinforced when I did my dissertation research. And that is that the true measure of your ability to listen is not whether you feel like you're focused or not talking or any of that. The measure of your quality of listening is done by the person being listened to.
Yeah. How are
And
they
so
feeling?
the synonyms that came up in my research were when I'm listened to, I feel heard,
Mm.
acknowledged, noticed, validated. And so if you were ever wondering, am I a good listener? You have to ask the people around you and say, am I a good listener? Do you think I'm doing a good job of listening? Which invites this extra step, which is my tip to everyone. Listen to what somebody says, repeat it back to them and say, this is what I'm hearing you saying. Am I understanding
Mhm.
correctly? And in that moment, you have sort of closed the loop on, you proved to them that you were
Yeah,
listening by repeating it back and making sure that your understanding was correct.
I like that. I don't I have I genuinely have tried to do that. I am definitely guilty of jumping in with an opinion without making sure I've understood the question properly. Um, and I am definitely guilty of wandering off mentally into where I want the conversation to go. But I think, would I be brave enough to specifically ask? I'm going to give it a go, JB. Because I say I'm talking all from my perspective. You're absolutely right. What difference does it make what I think? I need to ask the person in front of me and say, "How was that for you?" kind of thing. Is this? Am I a good listener? I'm just going to ask.
Are you
I'll
asking me?
report back.
This is such a meta moment, Julia.
Are you? Yeah. So I ask you, am I a good listener, JB? Let's start with you. Oh God, I'm not. And this has been recorded. Please be kind.
Of course, it doesn't hurt that you and I are very much on the same wavelength.
Hmm.
And so, uh, when you find somebody that you really resonate with, you can say that you are listening, but to me, what it really means is we get each other very easily. So it's not just my ability to listen to what you're saying. In some respects, I'm reading your mind,
Hmm.
and you're reading mine. At least that's how it feels to me.
Is that good?
Oh, yes, that's very
Oh,
good.
that's good. Okay, fine. Oh, I just need a little scorecard at the end there. Just a reassurance. Oh, well, no, I do know what you mean. It's like there isn't it doesn't take a lot of processing. I think that's how I would read it, interpret
Yes.
what you just said. It doesn't take a lot of processing talking to you. It just it's just happening. So
Yeah.
it's just like there's an ease. So I think that's what you're trying to say. But I'm still going to go
Very
around
much.
asking everybody. I'll report back on that, JB. See how I'm doing. I'll let you
I
know.
would love to hear about the outcome of that. Yes.
All right. Well, Dr. Rick Bommelje. Bommelje.
Well,
No, did I get that right?
Bommelje,
Oh,
yes.
Bommelje.
I
God,
I
please.
don't know if it's French. I actually think it's not, um, but I pronounce it Bommelje. He would say it's Bommelje.
All right. Well, what is the book? So it's called the. So there's the listening leader. Is that the title of the book that you worked on?
He has one book called Listening Leader. The book that
Mhm.
I helped him with was Listen Pays.
Listening pays. All right, everybody, go and check that out. Okay, I made a note of both of those. For the show notes, which I do now because I'm a professional, JB. Just so you know.
Yeah.
All right. Anything more you want to say about Dr. Rick Bommelje? I got it right that time.
Uh, yes, one more thing that I would add. In those mastermind meetings where we spent time, uh, getting to know each other at a very deep level, one of the things that Rick regularly practiced is what he called the golden pause.
Mhm.
And it was always a reminder that you could be in a state of turmoil, drama, uncertainty, whatever it is. Take a moment
Hmm.
and just reorient yourself and remind yourself that you can figure this out. You can let it be what it is right now. You don't have to have an impulsive response.
Hmm.
And so that golden pause was always a reminder, don't be impulsive, be thoughtful.
Yeah. Thoughtful. This is a good word
Hmm.
because in that context, it's literal. Be thoughtful. Think about it before
Hmm.
you say something because words have impact. They have meaning. How you make someone feel through your words, it matters, right? So be
Yes, very
thoughtful
much.
in the literal sense, but then also in the more kind of back to human connection and belonging, thoughtfulness is another way of we can show somebody that we really like that lady. Let's get her name right. Valerie Oberle was very
Hmm.
thoughtful in her introduction of you all. And like you
Hmm.
say, you'd follow her anywhere. I think thoughtfulness is such an underrated uh, human activity, particularly in friendship groups, in your relationship, and in fact anybody. But just being thoughtful, and I'm trying to practice it a bit at the moment, JB. One of my things, little ideas that I came up with, because we're all so busy now, aren't we? I have a thing when I've taken this thoughtful thing a bit too far. If I think of you, if you pop into my head, anybody listening, I will tell you. I've decided to do it. I've decided to just send a little note and go, "You were just on my mind."
Yes.
And this just popped up for me, or I saw this thing and thought of you, that type of thing. Because I just think to be thought of anyway is, particularly if it's a kind thought, is possibly one of the greatest riches in this world, isn't it? To be thought of.
I, I am somebody who likes to uncover patterns of communication. And what I
Mhm.
find fascinating is that you took the word thoughtful and made it very concrete. I am thinking about you today.
Yeah, yeah.
I think
That's
that's
where I
wonderful.
go. That's where I go, JB. I told you I'm really annoying at dinner parties. All right. Oh, I love the sound of him, and I think the golden pause. I think we could all do with practicing that more. And I totally am going to check out those books because I think listening is an art form, and I think we should all learn it. All right. So should we go on to number 4?
Yes, let's do it. My number 4. Okay, this is going back to the call we had in December,
Mm-hmm.
and you've already touched on it in this hour. The fact that I worked at Disney was very important to me and very influential. on my life. And you didn't come out and say it specifically, but my first thought was, oh, of course, I could talk about Walt Disney and the impact he had on me and the rest of the world. But I decided against that because we would not be talking about Walt Disney if it were not for his brother, Roy Disney. So my
Okay.
number 4 is Roy Disney, Walt Disney's brother.
Okay. Now you've got my attention.
I love it. Um, I am an executive coach, and I spend a lot of time helping leaders at all levels prepare to move into, more responsible roles, move up in the organization, be more strategic in the way that they think. And when you look at the Disney Brothers story, Walt, of course, was highly creative and, brought the magic to the Disney product. And I might add, Walt Disney, his name is on the company because he did want to be the center of attention. He was the star.
Mhm.
On Sunday nights on television, he was, making the creative decisions behind the scenes at the studio. But in those early days, the Disney company really struggled to get ahead. It was just a cartoon studio, and it was Roy Disney who was managing the money, who was negotiating with the bankers, who was making the deals with the vendors and the providers, and who figured out the strategy of we can't stay in business if we just make cartoons. We have to have other deals going. So merchandising,
Mm,
marketing, putting those characters on pencils and toothbrushes and little items that could be sold so that they could get additional revenue because there were many instances where the Disney company was ready to go bankrupt. And it was Roy Disney who was steering the ship behind the scenes. And he would also be a check on Walt Disney's creativity because if Walt Disney had all of his wishes honored, the studio would have gone bankrupt.
I mean, it's sort of shocking that I've lived all these years and I've never heard his name,
Ah,
isn't it?
yes.
And what was their relationship like on a personal level? Did he resent Walt's way of being and vice versa? Or did they chime well because they understood each other's strengths?
It definitely, evolved in both directions. What I can relate to is both of these men were Midwestern. They were born, or they were either in Chicago or Missouri, and they grew up on a farm.
Hmm.
And so I could totally relate to that. Midwestern farm boy, that's me all over the place.
Mhm.
And to know that they were able to find their way eventually to Hollywood and to build what is truly an entertainment empire,
Mhm.
um, took a lot of doing. I think they were largely on the same page and, they had great admiration for each other their entire lives. When it's interesting to me to think that it was after the studio became successful and after Disneyland had opened is when there were periods of time when they wouldn't speak to each other.
Mm.
And they both continued to operate the business, but they would communicate through intermediaries. And that was because of a little dispute of, some decisions that had been made with regard to WED Enterprises, which was made without Roy's knowledge or consent. And so that became a little bone of contention between the two of them. However, by the time they got to the 1960s, they had reconciled. And at the time that Walt Disney died, the story goes that he was in his hospital room dying from lung cancer, I think it was what he had. And he was pointing to the ceiling tiles of his hospital room with Roy Disney listening and Walt saying, "At Walt Disney World, the park is going to go here in this section, and here's where this road goes, and here's what we're going to put over here," using the ceiling tiles as a map of Central Florida. And Roy Disney took that moment and knew that he was going to fulfill this legacy, and it was Roy Disney who opened Walt Disney World in 1971.
That's
So
amazing.
together they were an amazing pair. And for a long time, actually, people would overlook Roy Disney, but it really got my attention where if you go to the Magic Kingdom now, I think this is true at almost every Disney park. They have a big statue of Walt right in front of the castle. He's holding Mickey's hand, and everybody takes the picture of that. But if you go down to Town Square at the end of Main Street, there's a little bench and there's a statue of Roy seated next to Minnie Mouse.
Hmm.
They're both represented in their own distinct ways because Roy did not need to be the center of attention. As an executive coach, what I like to work with a lot is if you're an introverted leader, if you're socially awkward, um, you can still have an amazing career and get a lot of things done if we simply know how to help you manage your energy and know how can you be effective when you don't crave the spotlight.
Well, okay. Obviously, my key question to you is,
Yes.
he sounds incredible, but you've listed him on your 5 as
Right.
somebody who's really spoken to you. So
Yeah.
is it that piece, what you just said, the fact that you recognize something in him, in you, which is this idea of introverted leadership that can still have massive impact? Is that the connection for you personally?
Uh, that's why I raised him to my top 5
Mm.
because I was just using the logic. If I talked about Walt Disney, everything that I said would be something that everyone has already heard before. And so I like elevating and celebrating the unsung heroes.
Mm.
And in the Disney story, Roy Disney is, for me, the unsung hero who I still think of equally as highly as Walt Disney as the leader that put this empire into motion.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I had no idea. Sorry, Roy. Um, blame your brother. He took all the oxygen. Um, and also when you summarized all those, the scale of the Disney empire, it's it's still. I mean, obviously, it's a huge, huge global brand and a success story. But isn't it interesting that it came down to two brothers in a hospital bed? Still,
Mm-hmm.
without that relationship, without that intimacy, without that kind of um, bond, if you like, between them, none of that would have happened. And there's thousands. I don't know how many people are involved with Disney now. Tens of thousands of people.
Yes.
But in
Hundreds.
Yeah, but in that moment, it was just two brothers. And also, back to your earlier point about siblings, who was there at the end? It was
Yes.
Roy,
Yeah.
not the 10,000, 100,000, 200,000 people and the millions of fans, millions of people who love Disney. It was Roy. He was there in the hospital bed. Ah, oh, I like that. All right. Well, I don't know what you can do for number 5 now, but I think we should end it there. No, let's do number 5.
Okay. Uh, this was an interesting choice. I kind of see this as bookends
Mm-hmm.
in that my first choice was Victor Hugo. And to me, that's sort of the macro level understanding that each one of us is a thread in the tapestry of the human story. And there are people who came before us. There will be people who come after us. That was my message from Victor Hugo. So for my number 5, I decided to go back into my family tree. And this might be an unorthodox decision, but I decided to go with the black sheep of the family and the town pariah.
Mm-hmm.
His name was William David Jr. He was born in 1857. As I like to say, he was born out in the country on a farm on the other side of the river.
Mm-hmm.
And I use that as a
Intriguing.
metaphor because he that is sort of where he belonged or what he was identified with. He became the black sheep of the family through a series of events in that but by the way, just to clarify, this man was my great grandmother's uncle or my great great grandmother's brother. So, growing up on a farm in rural Illinois in the 1800s, he eventually meets a young woman from town, my hometown, and she was from a prominent family. I believe her father was a banker. So she was connected, but they fell in love, got married, had 7 children, 6 of which lived to adulthood. And it was in his adult life as a farmer on the edge of town that he got in trouble for lying to people, cheating them on certain deals, was accused of stealing some things. So he already had sort of a bad reputation. On top of that, he also beat up his wife and abused his children. So he earned the label of town pariah, well, particularly in this moment. So at a time when divorce was rather unheard of, in the late 1890s, she divorced him, but he continued to live on that farm on the edge of town. She took the girls with her. They had 6 daughters together. She took them, moved them out of that house, and he was there by himself, and the divorce was underway. And because this was written about in the newspaper, I'm somebody who loves history. So if you go back to those newspaper accounts, I am certain that the person who wrote this newspaper account was present at this turn of events. Imagine being out in the country at night, looking out your window and seeing a line of torches coming toward your home. There was a group of men on horseback carrying torches and lanterns and wearing hoods over their faces.
Hmm.
They came and pulled him out of his house. They dumped hot tar on him. They tarred and feathered him. And they said, "Get out of town and don't come back."
Wow. Rough justice.
This was real vigilante justice
Yeah.
on the prairies of rural Illinois. And I find it fascinating, first of all, that that happened in my hometown. That seems so strange to even think of. Uh, but there's a little bit more to the story in that he could have taken the message and left town, but he did not. He went into town the next day with feathers still stuck to his face and started making accusations as to who these vigilantes were. And he named the town fathers, he named the bankers and the merchants and the lawyers and the doctors. And then they really wanted to get him out of town. So eventually he did move back to, as we would say, the other side of the river where he came from. And then there were a few more series of events that got him in trouble again, and eventually he went to prison.
Hmm.
Now, you might be wondering, like, how is this influential to me? As a genealogist, I have always been fascinated with understanding, how did I become who I am?
Hmm.
How did the people around me become who they are? What mysteries can be solved by studying the predecessors who came before us, given the fact that our very existence on this planet is due to an almost infinite number of decisions that were made by the people who came before. So we didn't get to choose when we were born or where we were born and what kind of family we were born into. But when you become an adult, you get to examine that, decide if you're going to accept it or reject it. What do I want to take with me? What do I want to leave behind? And build a life for yourself where you get to declare, I'm going to keep this because it's working. I'm going to leave this behind because it's not working. And I'm going to build a life for myself. So here's a little bit of the rest of this story from the genealogist's point of view. Because I so wanted to get the rest of the story. What happened after this? How did this impact subsequent generations? I started digging around and made phone calls and got in touch with distant relatives who were essentially strangers because I wanted to know what happened to the people who came after. So I found one of them was his daughter, Hannah. And the woman who I spoke to over the phone was living in Canada. I don't remember exactly where Hannah died, but they had all moved far away from where they were born. And I asked her, what was this woman like? They all lived well into the 20th century. And she said, oh, this woman was a horrible, mean, nasty woman. By the way,
Hmm.
a quote. Those were her exact words. And she talked about how this woman was angry, took out her anger on the people around her. And I wasn't there, but to me, that would serve as an anecdotal example of generational trauma
Hmm.
perpetuated. So that's example number one. Then I spoke to the descendants of Bessie. Bessie moved to Michigan. She married a gentleman who was a professor at Wayne State University. She had two children. I spoke to Bessie's daughter-in-law, and that was her daughter-in-law was very charming and intrigued by my call. And I said, "Did you ever hear of William David Jr.?" And she said, "Never heard that name in my life."
Mm.
And I told her about the story of William David, and she said, my mother-in-law never spoke of her family at all the entire
Mm.
time that I knew her. And my husband, Bessie's son, would say, "Mom, we sure must come from some bad folks because you don't want to talk about it at all." And
Yeah.
mother-in-law would smile and nod and say nothing.
Yeah.
And to me, that served as an example of generational trauma um, put to a halt. She
Mm-hmm.
was going to protect the next generation,
Yeah.
the shame associated with her father. And so, I mean, this woman's husband, Harlan was his name, um, seemed very happy, and they had lived a happy life together. And I don't know if him knowing anything more about that would have changed that, but I just found it interesting that she made that choice to not mention her family at all. But there's a third one that kind of upends a bit of my thinking. So I got this dichotomy. You could be an horrible, mean, nasty woman, or you can say everything's fine. I'm going to protect my kids from the knowledge of this. But there was a third daughter who I also found. So it winds up because I did have to dig for years. I searched for this. I didn't know where he had died, but I found it. And he was, I believe, on the census in 1910, and he had moved to Oklahoma. By the way, Oklahoma in the early 20th century was a great place for people to quote unquote start over.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was starting over in a new place. And I went there and I found the records and I found his gravestone and I took a photo of it to sort of complete that bit of research. But the other thing that I discovered to my surprise was living right next door to him in Oklahoma was his daughter Myrtle,
Mm-hmm.
her husband. And I thought, this young woman who grew up with so much trauma that her sisters had sort of scattered to the wind, and other members of the family had moved out of town because of the association with him because they were so ashamed. She decided to live next door to him. So maybe there's room for forgiveness in our family
Right.
stories.
All right. Well, that's some story. I got a slightly different response to those three things that you said. So can I share?
Yes, of course.
So Hannah, the angry one.
Yes.
Well, at least it's an expressed emotion.
Yes, true.
Okay. So to me, that's like I have a sort of a little bit of pride in her and envy of her because I think it's not an easy thing to be angry and to actually express yourself and be me. I think actually, um, I mean, many of us who've been traumatized ourselves would quite like to go through the world just being mean and angry because it's like we've got every entitlement to be that way. But somewhere along the line, it wouldn't have been helpful. It wouldn't have served us. So we would have found a different way to get through the world. So to me, when I meet people who are angry and mean, I think, gosh, aren't you lucky that you can express yourself so openly and so wantonly and impress yourself onto everybody else and, don't care how you're received. How wonderful that must be, even if it's a terrible experience for everybody else around you. I just feel a little bit of envy, a tiny bit of envy. So when you said about Hannah, and then Bessie, that holding back the tide thing.
Yeah.
Again, I'm impressed by that, which is another trauma response that says, not on my watch.
Yeah.
I'll hold back this now. I'll put it on my shoulders. And I hope she lived a long life, but I bet she probably didn't because I imagine that's exhausting to be the person that doesn't get to express their rage and their anger and their frustration of how they were raised and parented by this black sheep. Then the myrtle, I don't know. Is it? I think there's a thin line between forgiveness and trauma bonding.
Could be.
You know what I mean? There's a thin line, isn't there? And I'm no psychotherapist, but I'm fascinated by humans, as I've often said on this thing. And I wonder the what's the difference between true forgiveness, where you are capable of great compassion to someone who's harmed you, and it's genuine, versus a trauma bond of I I know you harmed me, but for me to make this better, I have to make you better, and I have to be better.
Mm.
So I'm going to shower you with love because that's what I always wanted, never got. So although I'm in agreement with you on all three of your summaries, I don't know if I'm wired funny, but I was feeling differently about them when you were speaking about them.
But
And I was thinking,
that's why I welcome the interpretation. These people were long dead before I even started researching them. Their stories will remain a mystery,
yeah,
but I think it's fascinating to consider that the trauma they endured, perhaps they all responded to it differently
yeah,
and chose
absolutely.
different paths.
Oh,
So,
that's clear. That I love. I love the fact that you've got these three distinct, real people who have, you know, just borne that trauma and expressed it in three so dramatically different ways. It's like a perfect kind of social experiment, isn't it?
mhm.
In one family, and for that to be your actual family,
Yeah.
that's pretty amazing. I mean, and well done you for going back and doing the research. And William David Jr. Did he? So ended his days in Oklahoma. Did he make old bones?
Did he make what?
Make old bones. Did he get old? Did he get to an old age?
He, forgive me, I'm doing the math. He was 43 at the turn, and he died in 1950, excuse me, 1915. So he was 58.
So not too old by modern standards, but maybe at the time would have considered a decent run.
You
But
know, there's a phenomenon that genealogists can all identify with, and it's the if I could only travel back in time, what could I learn by interviewing it? He's one of the people who I would want to interview, and just ask him, what contributed to this, what contributes to bad judgment,
mhm.
and did things turn around after you were released from prison? I mean, it means something to me that his daughter was willing to live next to him. Perhaps it was a trauma bond. That's entirely possible. But she had five sisters who really distanced themselves.
Yeah, yeah. What's special about her? Hmm. Does it make you think? I know we need to wrap this up soon enough, but does it make you wonder? You said earlier about as when we get older, we can choose what to keep, what to reject,
Yeah.
etc. Um, and again, to a point, I agree with you, but I also think that how we interpret our surroundings, how we interpret choices to make, is very much in our DNA as well. So, I have a sister. We're 14 months between us, and we couldn't be more different. But and I think it's because when we are faced with a thing, whatever that thing might be,
Mhm.
my my DNA gave me the ability to make these kind of choices, and her DNA made her take those kind of choices. So the whole nature nurture thing, isn't it? So is there any part of you? I hope this isn't too personal a question. Is there any part of you that, on your bad days, do you go, "Oh God, maybe I'm a bit William"?
No. I think he serves just as an example of how bad could it get?
Mm,
And by comparison, we're doing pretty good. But, Julia, I'm really taken with the moments that when I call people who are strangers essentially, but I say, "Well, we share this common ancestor." usually once they get past the, "Are you trying to get money out of me?" It's like where it starts. They're like, "Oh, you're truly a genealogist." Then they're very intrigued and interested and want to listen because they're also trying to figure it out. They're also
Yeah.
trying to figure out, yeah, where did I come from? And genealogy work is identity work.
Hmm.
It's about understanding where you fall into this ongoing chain. And I hope I'm not jumping the gun. I mean, I guess what I wanted to say is there are some people in the present who I would talk to them about the ancestors, and they would not be interested because you could tell they were still ashamed.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it funny how that can flow forward so many generations?
Yeah.
Hmm. Oh, well, what a list. It's a fabulous set of five. And we did get the honourable mentions. I'm glad we did it that way because I think we wouldn't have got the colour. You know what I mean? Obviously want to hear about your parents and your siblings, but to get into a sort of Roy Disney story, Victor Hugo impacted you personally, and the impact that your work had in that area on others. We never would have talked about William David Jr. What else we have here? Dr. Rick Bommelje,
Yes.
and the listening, and then Valerie Oberle,
Mhm,
Oberle,
mhm.
on the whole sort of how she interacted with people and created those trust bonds. I mean, there's a lot of content here. We've covered a lot of ground on the human spectrum, if you like, of experiences. So I'm really glad you took this approach, JB. It's excellent. It's a really wonderful list of people, and I can see how each of them has deeply impacted you and it's sort of shaped you. So it's you hit the brief, as they say. So I'm really, really, really pleased. And I always want to say to my guests at this stage, is there anything that we've spoken about today that's, I don't know, leapt out from you as a sort of new discovery that you made through doing this process, either offline when you were figuring it out, who to speak to, or just in our conversation? Is there any sort of new thread or new kind of, I don't know, I'm a bit like this because of, and I hadn't thought about that until now kind of feeling?
This assignment
Hmm.
really raised my awareness of what has contributed to my own development and particularly reinforced my awareness of the thing that you and I share, a deep curiosity in humanity.
Hmm. Hmm.
And when I'm working with people or just having regular everyday conversations, I'm just always reminded that it's easy to complain about other people and say, well, the world would be a better place if these people would shape up or change or do something differently. But I truly believe that we make the world a better place by making ourselves better people.
Hmm.
So it starts with looking in the mirror. And I'm not perfect. I'm constantly working on things that I can get better at. I accept where I'm at every day and make plans for, okay, I can continue to get better and it's my commitment to do so.
But I'd add to that as well, JB, and say you are also investing hugely in other people's ability to do that. Because it's one thing to do it for yourself, to make yourself a more impactful human being generally by being, I don't know, a force of good. But as you've actually amplified that, you found an outlet to amplify that and to bring that to people at scale. So, you know, I'm all for it. I'm all for people who have a genuine interest in how the human condition works, and then have the fortitude and courage and conviction to then do something about it. So cheers to you, as we say in old Blighty.
Thank you so much. The feeling is mutual.
Oh well, I don't know about that. I feel like I don't know. Sometimes I do think like I'll level with you here, JB, and everyone listening. On day, I do have my occasional days where I go, "What am I doing this for? Like, really? Come on, Julia. I'm really busy. Like, but I always make time for this. I love this." And there's a lot of work goes into these little productions of mine. And every now and then I go, "Oh, I just don't think I can do this." And then I have a conversation like this and I go, this is brilliant. Where else would I meet someone from Florida who's worked at Disney, who's got ancestors who are badasses and had to go and move to the other side of the river and, and all these experiences you've shared. And then I just go, no, this is why I'm doing it. This is why. And if nobody's listening, and they are, but if nobody was listening, I'd still do it because I just think what greater joy there is than to have quality time with somebody and have these kind of conversations. So I'm on my way, JB. I'm having a go at having my own little impact on this world. But thank you for it anyway, for just coming on today. And, I'm not done with you yet. I do want to know who I'm supposed to speak to next and why. So you're not off the hook on that one. I hope you've thought about it. But no, it's a real joy. I've really thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I just want to say that at this stage.
Likewise, and if I may summarize my perception of this whole experience with you, I I know as a listener and now as an interviewee, the message of this show, from my point of view, is you are not alone.
Hmm.
We share many commonalities, and I believe the ills of the world could be cured if people just took the time to figure out what they have in common.
Well, no, absolutely. Well, good. Can't wait to put this one out, JB. I think it's going to have an impact. Okay, so wonderful. Who are you going to hook me up with? Is it going to be? I'm just trying to think. Is there anybody alive on this page?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. You can edit this part out, because I was not. I have 3.
Yeah.
Do you want all 3, or do you want me to deliver them separately or back to back? I don't know.
Well, 3. I'm very greedy. I think if you've got 3, then let's have them. And I won't be editing this out because I want them to hear it.
All right. And by the way, I checked with all 3 of these people, and all 3 of them said yes.
Oh, well done. Super.
That part is already taken care of. My first one is Valerie Oberle, first female VP.
Really? She'll talk to me?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm touched by that. Thank you very much.
She's wonderful, and I look forward to listening to your interaction with her. My second one is Dr. Rick Bommelje.
I feel bad now. I said, is anyone alive on this list? They're going to be going, all right. They're definitely going to pick me up on that.
And the third one is not on my list of 5. However, he is a friend and colleague, and I have interviewed him on my podcast. And I think he would provide a fascinating show in that he typically gets invited to go on CNN and MS Now as he's a commentator on world events, particularly whenever there's a war in the world. Dr. General Mark Hertling is somebody who I want to hear who his top 5 are because I greatly admire him, and I think he's a very interesting person for you to meet and discuss.
Wow, that's some list, JB. I'm really touched by that. I mean, yeah, I'm a little bit taken aback because the way you were talking about Valerie is somebody I would so look up to and so aspire to be like, but to actually get to speak to her, I didn't imagine you saying that. So I'm really touched by that. Same with Dr. Rick Bommelje. It's like when you write a book that is having people think differently about something, like a real change maker, that to me is super impressive. So if I get to meet him, I'll be absolutely thrilled. And then, somebody who's, firstly, Dr. General Mark Hertling, was it?
Hertling, Hertling.
That's some name. That comes already with a certain grandeur, so I'm already quite intimidated. And then the fact that he's, a world events commentator must mean that he is someone of great substance.
Well, he was a general in the U.S. Army. Over I'm sure I'm getting this wrong. It was the Western Theater. So he had experience in Eastern Europe. He had experience in Ukraine. He understands that part of the world. And so consequently, he gets called onto television to comment on what's going on in the world. And he has a vast understanding of the conflict in the Middle East, and wherever there's conflict, he's just amazing at it. The thing I would add about him is not only is he knowledgeable, and you can say that he's intimidating, but after you meet him, I don't think, well, he's so approachable. He's
Mm.
he's deeply human and caring for someone who, could have the stereotype of being, the army drill sergeant. He's just very human.
Wow. And I'm very, very touched that you've already spoken to them and made sure this was okay. So, oh, JB, I'm very, very happy.
And
Um, well, listen, it's been an absolute joy. I mean, that's what, if you put the total time together, we've probably spent about 3.5 hours together. And what I love more is that no one's come in to ask us for if we want us, what we want for our entree, and we haven't had to sort of shout because somebody's screaming at us in the next table. There's something about the intimacy of a podcast where you've got your headphones on, I've got mine, and we're just listening to each other and talking to each other, and it's completely uninterrupted. So it's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope we stay in touch. I hope I get to hear. Well, I have to feed back to you how I'm getting on with asking people if I'm a good listener. That's my homework.
absolutely. And when I'm in London, which I don't know exactly when it will be, but when I'm in London, I'm going to let you know, and I would love to meet you for a drink and get caught up on how things are going.
I would love that. I would love that. It's becoming a thing as well. I've only done it with Nancy Berger, if you're listening.
Yes.
We met in Boston. I'm coming back to the States in September again. And I hope to see her. And well, no, I am seeing her again. I'm actually staying at her house. This is what happens.
Nancy. Wow.
Nasty, we're now actual friends. So let's see how this goes. But it's a definite bonus of the work I do in this little poddy of mine that I meet to get to meet great people and get to know them. So listen, enjoy the rest of your day. It's nighttime, very, very much nighttime with me now. And I'm going to be jealous of your sunshine for another little while because I don't think we're expecting any
I'll
sunshine
send
anytime
you
soon.
some.
So please do.
And I want to thank you so much, Julia. This has been a delight from beginning to end, and I expect the conversation to continue.
Wonderful. Cheers to that. The wonderful JB Adams there. I knew he'd be a wonderful kind of season finale. And what a season it's been. I don't know about you, but I've thoroughly enjoyed each conversation. I've learned a lot. I feel like I'm getting into my groove quite a bit. I'm really enjoying myself. But mostly I'm just coming away with a really warm feeling about us all. A very optimistic feeling about us as human beings and our capacity to connect. And the importance of the people in our lives just seems to be growing and growing as a theme for me in my day-to-day life. And I hope it is for you too. So I'm going to take a little break now. We're just coming into the summer. The next new recording, so season 6 is going to be July the 21st. But in between now and then, I'm going to do some sort of best ofs and themes and bits and bobs just to keep you all entertained until we come back in July. So until then, enjoy some sunshine. I hope you're getting some sunshine wherever you are. And I look forward to seeing you back here on July the 21st. Take care until then. Bye-bye.